Yeah, I believe so. Nick, what time do we start answering?
We're going to change. If you could sing. We're going to just let you sing it and then go into you talking. That's okay. Sorry about that.
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Goes in that one.
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
She gets a chance to play.
Hare Krishna,
Is it plugged
Hare
in?
Krishna,
Sure.
Hare Bolo. Krishna Krishna,
There we go.
Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hari Bol. We're going to do kirtan and then we have more lights here.
Yes.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Pretty serious, huh? Microphones for the drum.
They like their sound system.
Hare Ram. We want to put this through the sound system? You have a cable?
Yeah, actually.
Hold on, everyone. We are in the process of Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Yes. Okay. Okay. Oh, we were going to do Brahma Samhita. Maybe later. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Krishna, Almost ready. Okay, can we do too tall? You know? You know how to do it? Hare Krishna, Hare Okay, we'll try. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pachani Abhisesa Sanyavadi Paschatya Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. No, I'll do it. I'm a professional in this area. Oops. Put that on the mic stand. Oh, yeah. Trouble in paradise. That's good. Like this, yeah. Okay. Hare Krishna. Well, what happened? We turned it on? Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare. Hare Rama. Hare Rama. Rama Rama. Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare. Hare Rama. Hare Rama. Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare. Hare Rama. Hare Rama. Rama Rama. Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, 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 Bolo, Hari Bol. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Prabhupada. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bolo Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Guru Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Prabhupada ki Jai Govinda. Hari Hari Bol. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sanyavadi Paschati Dasate Mukam Karati Vachalam Pangulangai Tegiringa Kripata Mahambande Sri Guru Dinatana. Can you take this? Thank you. Vanchaka Paturubhischa Kripasindhivyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavi. Can you also take the table? Without. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. Oh, you want to say something? Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda. You know, in the Bhagavatam, they were glorifying, I think it was Prithu Maharshi, and he said, don't glorify me until I prove my glories. So why don't you glorify me after class, if it's a good class? If it's not a good class, you won't have to. No good? What do you want to say?
Just introduce you to...
Okay, all right. You have 30 seconds.
Hare Krishna!
Hare Krishna!
Hare Krishna!
Hare Krishna!
Krishna Krishna!
Krishna Krishna!
Hare Hare!
Hare Hare!
Hare Rama!
Hare Rama!
Hare Rama!
Hare Rama!
Rama Rama!
Rama Rama!
Hare Hare!
Hare Hare!
Hare Krishna, everyone. And welcome to the first day of our Mahatma Yoga weekend. So today we're very, very, very fortunate to have His Grace Mahatma Prabhu with us today. So Mahatma Prabhu joined ISKCON in 1969 and he was initiated by Srila Prabhupada in 1970. And from there on he's been involved in various services including book distribution, Sankirtan leader and including temple president. And today His Grace is
Cook, pujari, bathroom cleaner, congregational membership, answering the phone when no one else would answer. What else? Counting money after Sankirtan. Going to the bank and depositing it. And one of my services was to drive our van away from the bank that was trying to repossess it. In 1970, yeah. He came to repossess it and we jumped in the van. We drove off and he was quite frustrated. Yes?
So as you can tell, His Grace has been involved in a lot of services over the years. Today he's very, very well known for his work on seminars on japa, marriage, forgiveness, mind control, managing emotions, and many more topics. And today we're fortunate to have His Grace speak on humility. So without any further delay, pass over to His Grace
Hare
Mahatma
Krishna.
Prabhu.
Jai Prabhupada.
So if we could welcome His Grace Mahatma Prabhu with three
Thank
loud
you.
Hari Bols.
Haribol! Haribol! Haribol!
His Grace Mahatma Prabhu ki
Jai!
So we had a great lesson in humility this morning. We came to Bhaktivedanta Manor and there was a brahmachari. I think he's fairly senior, at least. He looks like he's getting towards 50 or so. I don't know his name. And he was cleaning the shoe room. This was around the time of Guru Puja. Do you know that devotee? What? Oh, what? Prayojana. Oh, Prayojana. He's been a devotee a while, right? So he was cleaning the shoe room, and I got the impression no one asked him to do it, that he just decided it should be cleaned, and he cleaned it. And so we came in, he didn't see us, and then he turned around, he saw us, and he had a big smile, and he was appreciating us, and so on. So I was with Sadbhuja Chaitanya, and I could see that Prayojana was very happy. And I don't think most people who clean shoe rooms are that happy. At least not for a living, anyway. And you could see, I bet you have to have a certain degree of humility to just go and clean a shoe room when you could be in the temple, right? Greeting the deities or doing Guru Puja, attending Guru Puja. And he had a big smile on his face and he was offering respects. And then the first thing that struck me was, I said to Sadbhuja Chaitanya, I said, just see how happy he is. And you could see he was a very humble person. You could see there was no pretension and no false prestige or trying, I'm going to impress people because I'm cleaning the shoe room. That's why I'm doing it. And I hope a lot of people come through here. And actually, I'll clean the shoe room at 10 to 7 because that's when everybody comes in the temple. And then so many devotees will see me cleaning the shoe room and everyone will think I'm a humble devotee. None of that was there. And although that sounds ironic and paradoxical, sometimes we do service and there is some intention to show off in some way or another. So I turned to Sadhbhuja Chaitanya and I said, you want to be happy? Be humble, because look how happy he is. And you could see he wasn't, in his smile, the smile just said, everybody's great, I'm happy cleaning the showroom. I'm not envious of anyone. You could see that in his smile. And so it just dawned on me, like at that moment. Not that I didn't understand it, but it just struck me at that moment again, a reminder. Do you want to be happy? Be humble. Because when you're humble, you don't have to pretend to be something you're not. And that is one of the great causes of distress. Don't you agree? When you're trying to, pretend and you have to show off, you have to impress people, you're always on your toes to look like you're a good devotee. Hare Bo Prabhu, Hare Krishna, So unfortunate you have to see me and I'm so sinful, but please forgive me. And then you're doing that thinking, oh, he's going to think I'm a humble devotee. Maybe he'll even think I'm a pure devotee. And so we play that game, and that game is, it doesn't make us happy. It frustrates us, right? Or we praise somebody and we go home and we tell our wife how much we hate him. Something like that. So that was just, I think it was a good introduction. Krishna gave me that experience as a good introduction to today's class. Humility means many things, but what I learned this morning, or was reminded this morning, it means no pretension. I'm not pretending to be somebody I'm not in order to get some recognition. And I want to tell you something you may not have heard, and it's quite shocking. But Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, if you try to manipulate yourself in some way, in order that you can get recognition in the assembly of devotees, in other words, as you can get some distinction. What if I could do this service? If I do this service and I do it well, I'll get distinction. Or they ask you to do a service and you calculate whether or not you should do it based on how much distinction you get. How much recognition, how much prestige in the community. Will this be good for upward mobility in my ISKCON status as a great pure devotee? He said, if you're thinking like that, that very act is evil. That's interesting, isn't it? To try to become recognized as a great Vaishnava, according to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, is evil. It's not wrong, it's not bad, it's evil. Meditate on that. Isn't that interesting? Now we would think, oh, that's wrong. But we wouldn't think it's evil. And he's saying it's evil. Why would he say that? It's evil. Because we're trying to imitate Krishna and take some of his glory away and direct attention to us. That's evil. I mean, it's evil, but in the association of Vaishnavas, it's definitely evil, because we're meant to give appreciation, upliftment, service, glorification of others, and Guru and Krishna. Yes? Well, that's a very heavy statement. Now, when you think about becoming humble, you might think, I'm not humble, and I probably never will be, so why even try? Have any of you ever thought like that? I'm not even close to humble. In fact, I never even heard the word before I became a devotee. I didn't even know it existed. I didn't know there was such a thing as humble. I didn't know it was necessary. And now, I'm serious, I never even used the word or heard it. I only heard it in ISKCON. It wasn't really, I guess people in my generation or my culture didn't think being humble was useful because the word wasn't used. And now I become a devotee and I'm asked to be humble. And some of us think that's pretty much impossible. And it's not even worth trying because I can't do it. But Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, by his statement, I think we can understand he's saying it's everything. And that's like, in a sense, a goal. Try to become humble. So I think it's useful for us just to discuss what humility means for us on a practical level. Now, I can define what humility means on an impractical level. You read songs of the acharyas and they describe their humility and you try to copy that. That's pretty impractical. Okay, I've read about the humility of Krishnadas Kaviraj, and he says, if you mention my name, you become sinful, and I am lower than a worm stool. So today I'm going to practice developing this mentality. Is that possible? Okay, I would like all of you to now start feeling lower than a worm stool. Can anybody do it? Can anybody relate to it? And I would think if you were successful at doing this, we'd probably have to call an ambulance and take you to the mental hospital, because you'd be completely deranged, you know. I think I finally got the feeling of a worm stool. Then you'd be dysfunctional. Don't you agree? Krishnadas Kaviraj is not dysfunctional, because his experience of feeling like a worm stool, which we may not understand, is real, and it's a byproduct of his Krishna consciousness. Worm stool pretty much means everybody's above you, right? Most of creation is above you, so he feels that way. So that is something. What to speak of imitate is extremely difficult to understand, if we could even understand it at all. How could somebody feel that way and still not be depressed? So let's say I could get you to feel lower than a worm stool. You'd all be depressed. Don't you think? Okay, I'm going to spend the next hour convincing you you're lower than a worm stool, and you're all going to walk out here. We'll have to give you some psychotropic drugs to bring you back to normalcy, because you'll all be totally depressed. Isn't it? So it would just be imitation to try to enter into that kind of awareness. It wouldn't make sense, because that's not something we could aspire for in this state. And that's not something in this state of consciousness we could experience. Does that make sense? And the interesting thing about it, and I don't know if you've seen this, but what's interesting about it is that sometimes we try to imitate this humility, and the humility which is relevant for us, or the humility which is aligned with our advancement, we don't. Like, so Prabhu, I'm lower than a worm stool, and let's go in the next room and criticize him. Something like that, and talk about how he's managing everything wrong. So, because it's not realized humility, then the lack of humility will come out. You understand? It's like we're trying to imitate some humility we don't have, and then we're neglecting the kind of humility we should develop. So what is humility for us? What's real for us? And what's important for us? What do we need to work on? Well, you all know, I know, we all know that we all have a tendency to criticize. So that's a good place to start. What does humility look like for us? Appreciation, not criticism. Right? That's really important, don't you think? Not going around, I'm lower than a worm stool, and then, getting on the internet and criticizing everybody. Right? Have you seen that before? Anybody? You understand what I'm saying? It's like we're shooting for something that we don't even understand, and we're neglecting what we should understand. So I think for us, defining humility can't be in any way imitation of great acharyas, but it has to be real. Like right now, today, what did you complain about? Right now, today, what were you intolerant about? Because humility means tolerance. That's the essence of, or an essential aspect of humility is tolerance. Isn't it? Right. And I think a lot of us are looking to kind of enter the mood of humility in a way which is so far beyond us and not really understandable that we'll neglect that. So I'm serious. How many things you think about what you complained about today? The traffic, your husband, your wife, your boss, the price of petrol. What did you complain about? All of those, Prabhu, plus about 46 other things. Yeah. Okay. And then I come to the temple. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. can I polish your toenails? I would be so grateful if you'd give me the opportunity. Because it's fallen so like me, just by touching the dust of your feet, could be saved from the sins of lifetimes. Yeah. And then we go back out, go home, and start honking our horn, screaming at people, and we get home, there's no prasad, and we yell at our wife. You know. We don't need to look at this other kind of humility. That's going to come when you become Krishna conscious. That will all happen. And if you try to make it happen before you're Krishna conscious, it doesn't help you, it doesn't help anybody. And it's not real. But what didn't you tolerate today? Who didn't you tolerate? That's humility. Who did you criticize? Who did you blame? Who did you put down? Who did you pull down? Who did you stamp on after they were down? Who are you trying to show off to? Who are you trying to impress? Who did you lie to about something to cover up your fault? That's the level we're at. That's where we need to work. Because, you know, you can get up at 4 a.m. and chant 16 rounds. And you go, I'm good, I'm a devotee. And do all this other stuff. And wait a minute, something's wrong with this picture. You know, if I'm getting up early and chanting Hare Krishna, I'm not supposed to do this other stuff. That means possibly I'm not aware that that's what humility is, because I have another definition and I overlook this definition. So, who in this room don't I like? Who in this room am I envious of? Who in this room am I jealous of? Where's the humility if I'm envious? Who in this room should I appreciate and I don't? That's how we need to be thinking, and that way we can evaluate our humility. If we don't do that, this is my fear, and this fear may have already happened in many of our centers in ISKCON, but if we don't do that, we are going to subtly, you're not going to tell people this, but if I'm pretending to be more than I am, if you're pretending to be more than you are, if you're pretending to be something you're not, she's pretending, then when people come in, they're going to get a message, just pretend you're Krishna conscious even if you're not. And if you're having problems, don't tell anybody, because they'll find out, and that'll blow your cover. Isn't it? Now, Deepak told me something yesterday that blew my mind. Fortunately, my mind, after it was blown apart, it came back together. We glued it back together. And this may blow your mind also, but hopefully we can glue your mind back together. Your problems lose power when you talk about them. They lose the strength and control they have over you when you talk about them. But if we feel the need to pretend to show that we don't have problems, then how can we talk about the problems? Because if I talk about them, that's an admittance that I'm not what I'd like you to believe I am. So if I have a need for you to believe that I'm more Krishna conscious than I am, how can I ever tell you when I have a problem? Because that would be too embarrassing, and that would, how do we say that? That would, what's the word? Blow my cover. You have that expression here? It would blow my cover, Prabhu. I won't tell you, I shall not tell you the real secrets of my inner self, because it would blow my cover. And then you would not think that I'm a great devotee. You would think I'm just a fool like you. And I don't want you to think that way. So I'll be very proper and do everything proper, so you will think I'm a proper devotee. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Nice to see you. Isn't it? Yeah. So the problem is, if enough people do that, then it creates a culture, and new people come in and they'll do it also. And of course, the problem is obvious that that's not what Krishna consciousness is, but a side effect, which is very serious, is what I just said. Then you can't talk about your problems, and we all need to talk about our problems. If we have problems, we need to talk about it, don't we? Because if you don't talk about it, the problem doesn't go away. It has a grip on you. And talking is therapeutic, isn't it? Rena and I, we spoke today. We had that experience, right? Talking is, you talk and it's therapeutic. We all have that experience, isn't it? If I have a problem and I can talk about it, it's therapeutic. Isn't it? You agree? Yeah, it's very important. Because you're holding it in, and it's just you fighting it, right? I'll give you an example. It's a very interesting example. I decided to do a workshop on vows because all of us take vows, either initiation vows or marriage vows or some vow, a vow on a codicy, like that. So I thought, because so many of us are taking vows, it would be nice to have a course to help us understand the psychology of vows. What is a vow? What does it mean to commit, right? And then I thought, well, there are 4 regular principles. Gambling is probably not a problem for most people. Meat eating is probably not a problem for most people. Drugs, alcohol is probably not a problem for most people, except maybe tea, but that's not so hard to get over. But illicit sex is the problem. So I thought, well, if I'm going to do a course on vows, why don't I do a course on sexual purity? Because that's usually the vow that people have the most trouble with. So I stopped preparing the course on vows and prepared the course on sexual purity. And you want to know what happened? No, I advertised it. It was in Alachua. Sexual purity for men, right? So usually if I do a course, you'll get 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 people. That course, there were 6. And before the course, 2 or 3 women came to me and said, "You're really bold." I said, "Why?" She said, "To give a class on sexual purity?" I said, "What's so bold about that?" She said, "Nobody's going to come." I said, "Why?" He said, "Because if they come, then it's like admitting they have a problem. So nobody's going to, that's why we got 6 instead of 30 or 40. Interesting, isn't it? I thought, you know what I thought? I mean, maybe I'm proud, but I thought this is probably the most needed course in ISKCON. Because this is the thing we struggle the most with. And I thought, like the whole temple is going to line up around the block and we're going to have to do a course every week to facilitate everybody because they're going to say, "Thank you, this is long overdue, we need this, we need support for this." Then 6 people come. And everyone's afraid to come. And you don't think people need this course? You don't think everyone needs this? Of course, everybody needs it. But one of the most interesting things that happened in this course was let's say, what did you get from this course? What do you think was good about this? And they'd said, "I've never talked about this problem with anybody. I've struggled with it myself my whole life. And the best thing about this course is that I could talk about it." That was a highlight. They didn't say, "Oh, Mahatma Prabhu, you're a good teacher," and this and that. They said the highlight of the course was, and I thought I taught a lot of good things. They said the highlight of the course is I could talk about it. I spent my whole life with a secret in my heart. I'm struggling with it, and I couldn't talk about it. And that was the highlight of the course. And they were relieved to be able to talk about it. They said, "Now I don't have to struggle alone anymore. I have someone I can talk about it." And they didn't say this, but they were also relieved by something else, which you'll find funny, but I can guarantee you they were relieved by this. They were relieved to find out that everyone in the room had the same problem they did. I'm totally serious. Well, that's funny. It's true. I thought I was the only one struggling with this. I'm so happy to learn that you have the problem worse than I do. Not because I don't like you, but at least I don't feel like there's something wrong with me. And actually, you have it worse than me, so I don't feel like I'm the worst person in the world. Reverse Worman stool. I actually feel it not humbly, but low self-esteem Worman stool. Right? So, it is an important consideration. Now, another problem with pretension is judgment. I don't know if you've ever done this, but have you ever judged somebody for a problem that they have, that you also have? Like you're upset that they have a problem, and then you think about it and you go, oh my God, I have that same problem. But the tendency of judgment is, wait a minute, that's bad because we're not supposed to be that way. That's not the way Prabhupada wants it. So there's like this emotional reaction. You're a devotee, how could you do that? You know? It's, I just went to this restaurant, it's really great. If you're a devotee, we don't go to restaurants. Why did you go? Of course, 3 weeks ago you were at a restaurant, but somehow that didn't count as a restaurant, right? You have that experience? Isn't that weird? That is totally weird. So we want a high standard, and because we want a high standard and we want devotees to follow that standard, there is a tendency when somebody is honest about their shortcomings and things they've done, we have a tendency to judge them miraculously, even though we have the same problem, we would judge them. And the problem with that is, if I know you will judge me, you think I'm going to tell you my problem? If that's one, I don't want to be judged, because I can't heal my problem if I'm judged, because I need to talk about it to someone who won't judge, because as we said, we need to talk, right? We need to process through speaking. So I can't speak if someone's going to judge me. That will shut me up. And not only will it shut me up, I may not even be able to start speaking. The second problem is confidence. Yes?
Sorry, Prabhu, I just had a quick question.
Okay.
So, when you were speaking about opening up and having
Yeah.
conversations between one another, how do you avoid, because it's a great idea, but realistically, a lot of us have our own, like you were talking about judgment. How do we adapt appreciation also?
Okay,
So
when you're
we're
listening.
able to open up enough for people to understand that, yeah, we have this problem, but also to appreciate that somebody may have a strength, because the tendency is that as soon as we judge someone, we become completely cynical about that person, that they absolutely have no good judgment in any area. So that tendency can be there. So how to deal with that?
You're speaking from, I want to get clear, you're speaking from the person who's revealing or the person who's been revealed to?
Both.
Okay. Okay, I'll continue what I was saying because it'll answer half the question, and then I want to get clarity on the other half. We have the instruction to exchange love in 6 ways. One of them is to speak in confidence, and the other one is to listen in confidence, basically. Right? Reveal your mind in confidence, have your mind reveal someone's mind to you. So, confidence. How much confidence do you think exists in ISKCON that you can tell one person and no one else will ever learn? On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being high and 1 being low, where do you think we are in ISKCON? How many people do you trust in ISKCON that you could tell something and they won't tell anybody? Not their wife, their mother, their son. What's your number? How many for 1? Okay, half the room says 1. How about, how many for 10? 9. 8. You haven't been around long enough. 7. Okay. The numbers, it's low. We're defining confidence as, I would say, we could define confidence as when the person speaks to you. In this case, we're using you, answering the side of someone speaking to you. That when you say, I'm sworn to confidence, nobody hears about what happened. What they told you, nobody hears about it. It's totally confidential. Not your wife, not your dog, nobody. Not the typical, I'm not supposed to tell you this, but. That ever happened to you? Do you ever do that? I'm not supposed to tell you this, but. No, I'm not. My wife sometimes would do that. No, I'm not going to tell you. So you'd have to tell me now. I mean, you won't believe this. It's crazy. I'm not supposed to tell you. I can't. So, okay. So that's an aspect of confidence, and I think the other aspect of confidence is when a person is speaking, if you want to facilitate their speaking, you can't judge them because, as I said, they can't speak. So if I understand your question is, how can you hear without judgment? Right? Think of it as a service. Understanding the person can't speak if you judge. They can't get it out. Yes, Deepak knows more about this. Through experience, yeah.
Someone once told me to hear without judging, you have to get off your throne.
Yeah, because that's what judgment is. I'm better than you. If we understand that hearing without judgment can be the best therapy for that person, then hearing without judgment is a service. So that's the head. The head, at least we understand with our head. The other half of your question then would be, how do we do it? Right? Yes.
Can I add on to that question?
Okay.
So this is just a realistic example that I think is an issue.
Okay.
So obviously the line is there between senior devotees and junior devotees, but on the platform of peers, it kind of ruins relationships because there's always, or there could be the competition for who is superior.
No, try to outdo your peer, yeah. That's in the pretentious environment. That's the problem with the pretentious environment. There's nothing real. And there's fear of being real. Let's say we're friends and I reveal something to you and you get upset about what I did. So the healing's over. I can't talk to you anymore. Because you didn't have the emotional control to not get upset, to serve me. So I think it's important to realize that to do this kind of service to another, you have to have that kind of emotional control. Or let's say it's a God brother, and he comes to you and says, I've lost faith in our Guru, I see him do this and that, it's wrong. It's like, that's hard for you to hear. So these emotions come up. But you understand that he's a sincere devotee, and if you just listen, you can help him. So you have to be able to control your emotions, to be able to listen as a service. I'm not saying it's easy, but that's part of the service. And that's also how you don't judge. If you understand that it's going to help him by listening and not judging, and that's the best service you could give him, then I think you can do it. And I think we have so many faults ourselves. You may not have his faults, but you have your own. So to judge him for something that's not your fault doesn't mean you don't have other faults. So I think that's important to remember. Sometimes when people will reveal their faults to me, sometimes I think, I feel sorry. I don't feel judgmental. I feel sorry. So that's a more compassionate approach. It was like Deepak saying, get off your throne. We need a little humility for the compassion to develop. So you're telling me I've lost faith in our Guru. That could bring out a lot of anger, but it could bring out compassion. So, I feel sorry for you. That must be really hard. It must be really difficult. How can I help you? So if you're coming from the mood of service, I think you can do it. If you're coming from the mood of judgment, it's going to be hard. And judgment means I'm better. Does that make sense? And again, we go back to that point, that speaking is therapy, and the better listener you are, the better they can speak. And the more they trust you, the more they can get out. Because there's a saying, you're only sick as your secret. So if I have secrets in me, I have to feel confident I can get them out. It's not going on the internet. It's not, your wife's not going to hear it. You're not judging me. You're only present there to help me as someone who will listen. And not even give advice unless I ask for it. That's pretty tough, isn't it? Sometimes you're listening and you want to say something, but your service is to listen. And if they want advice, they'll ask for it. Or if you have advice, you say, do you want me to give advice or just want me to listen? Not really humble. And they might say, just listen. Okay, then you have to detach and not say anything. That's service. And that's a high service. And sometimes that can solve people's problems. So, let's just speak about judgment for a minute, because it's an important issue. When I become a devotee, one of the things that I like about ISKCON is that there are other people practicing. So now I can be with people who practice what I'm trying to practice, because I'm weak. But if I have people to lean on, then when I fall, someone's going to be doing what I'm not doing, and I'll get picked up. Isn't it? So I'm in the association of devotees. If I'm not chanting my rounds well, somebody in this room will, and I can see them, and then I can see, oh, I'm not chanting well. Just by looking at you, I can see. Or I have some weakness, and you don't have that weakness, and that inspires me. So a lot of where the judgment is coming from is that you have the same weakness I have, and I don't want you to have that weakness, because I have it. You understand? Like, I need you not to have it, and when you have it, it bothers me. So I become critical and judgmental of you for having the weakness that I have, because I'm too weak to correct it, and when you don't correct it, that bothers me, because I need you to help me correct by being an example. Does that make sense? I'll give you an example. Rabindra Swarup tells a story that early on in the movement, there weren't many devotees, and when somebody left, it was like sent shockwaves through ISKCON. Like, we couldn't imagine that anybody would leave, because this is perfect. Do you understand that scenario? Like, we become devotees and go, this is it, I've been looking for this for 10 zillion lifetimes, everything is perfect, I'm happy, this is true, I finally found it, my suffering's over, Bhagavad Gita is amazing, etc., etc. Then somebody bloops. That was like, oh my God, I didn't think this could happen. So Rabindra Swarup was making a similar analysis. He was saying, deep down inside, being a devotee was really hard, and there's a part of us that just wanted to give up and bloop, and that person actually did it. And it shocked us, because we want to do it also. Maybe not consciously. And it like killed us, because it's like the door just got opened by a person blooping, like I could do that also. Whereas everybody stays as a good devotee, it supports me. Does that make sense? So, you become a devotee, you're part of the community, I expect you to live on a certain standard, because I'm trying to live on that certain standard. And if you don't live on that certain standard, how can I live on this certain standard? So I'll tend to judge you by that standard. And I'll feel you're letting me down by not following that standard, because I need you to follow it. That really, to me, that lacks like immense amounts of compassion, doesn't it? For that person's own struggle. Like, Nikhil tells me I'm struggling with this, and I get mad at him. Isn't that weird? That's because you're offensive, and I've seen you, and you chant bad rounds. That's what you're having trouble. You know? I'm like really upset with him, right? Because I'm seeing him in me, and I'm upset with myself, and I need you to be on a certain level. So judgment kind of undermines compassion. So Nikhil says, I'm having trouble with this, and I go, oh, I'm really sorry to hear that. What can I do? How can I help you? Let's work this out. So if we have a judgmental society, then we lack compassion. If we have a pretentious society, we lack humility. And then we create a culture where we can't be honest, and people are trying to be something they're not. And when people join the society, everyone picks up on that. And then a lot of us live our own, what do they say, quiet lives, what's the saying? Quiet lives of desperation, is that it? A statement from some book. You know, anyway, it's a good statement, whether it's from a book or not. Something like that. You know, we suffer silently because we can't tell anybody. So, I'm not saying this is true across the board, and I'm not saying you don't have friends that you can't reveal. But I'm saying this should be 100% everywhere. And definitely confidence is low in ISKCON. Your confidence gets spoken to another person often. And, yes, okay. So the other half of your question was, what was the other half of your question? From the point of view of the person speaking?
Yeah.
And so what was the question?
So, the first part of the question was, how can we, from the point of view of the person that's hearing, and from the point of view of the person that's speaking, how can we have that faith that even though we may have had previous experiences where our trust has been abused to open up, how can we, like, what is the quality that we're looking for? If humility isn't an external thing, so people can be pretentious and do the whole...
What are we looking for in a person that we're going to speak to?
How can we recognize that person? Because a lot of the times we can have various examples of someone may be popular because, I don't know, they might be a big donor or they speak very well, but that doesn't always reflect how they are as a person.
Right.
So how are we supposed to recognize that person that is going to hear us without judgment?
What a difficult question to answer. Sometimes the safest person is going to be the person you know the best, who's shown that trust, or because you're so close, you make the assumption that this is the best person. We were talking about something the other night, which was kind of alarming to devotees, and I said not all advanced devotees get along. Which, it doesn't sound like, well, if you're advanced, you get along. If you're not advanced, you don't get along. Well, there's a lot of people who aren't devotees get along. A lot of people who are advanced devotees don't get along. So, because someone is advanced, unfortunately, that person may not be always the best person to reveal yourself to. For various reasons. They may not have those skills. So, you have to feel comfortable with the person. And you have to, maybe have some connection. Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is, like you said, if a person is in a senior position, we can't always assume that we can reveal everything to them. Because it has happened that people have revealed something and it got told to other people and by a very senior person. So, and it was very damaging to the person who said it. It's a tough question to answer because it's. Anyway, you had something to say?
Yeah, I mean, it's just something that I guess it's the ideal that most people are looking for, that we want to reveal our mind to someone who we don't feel will abuse our trust.
Yes.
Isn't using us to kind of mold us into who they want us
yes.
to be. But at the same time, like you said, speak to someone who you trust, and like we all have friends like that. But on the other side, it's like our friends may not be that spiritually advanced, so it could be that they're just kind of reciprocating our, you could say, judgment, and you just moan to each other. So it's like finding that line in between. Well,
the first answer I was going to give, which may not be the answer everyone wants, is intuition. I have an amazing ability to forget what people tell me, which is very good for a counselor. Because people say, is this going to be confidential? I say, I have so many things to remember. If I don't have to remember this, it's a blessing. It'll just evaporate in my head. I don't need to remember it. So somehow Krishna gave me the blessing of a bad memory. And I think people understand that when they meet me. And they talk to me about their problems. And sometimes they say, I don't know why I'm talking to you. And I think it's an intuition. They have an intuition that they can trust me. And I think they can trust me. I think I am trustworthy. But I'm not saying it to glorify myself, but I'm saying sometimes you have an intuition that, you hear somebody speak, you hear them talk, and you see their behavior, and you just have this intuition that sometimes it's like that. Another thing which is good, which is what I do in my workshop, is we create a situation in which we say, okay, now we're going to talk about, like in this workshop, it's not really a workshop, but I could ask you, in terms of humility or pride or pretense, what are your biggest challenges? And I would like you to share that with somebody, and we want to maintain absolute confidence in here. And we're not going to begin until I get everyone in the room to agree that whatever you hear is not shared with anyone. Does everyone agree? And so everyone says, okay, we agree. Everyone can feel comfortable that nothing will be said. Everyone is outside the room, everyone's promised. And then we start sharing. So maybe he's not a trustworthy person, but he just made a promise. So now you can trust him. So sometimes that's helpful. Or you create a group, 3 or 4 or 5 men, and you make an agreement amongst yourselves that we need to talk. And although they may not be the most trustworthy people, now they agree. This stays with us. We need this environment. We need to talk. So that's also possible. And you might feel safer in that environment. Yeah. And some people by nature are more trusting, which could be good or could be bad. But I think the more formal, the better, because then we can have regular sessions to reveal, because we're constantly dealing with problems. It's not like you come to the end. We're always dealing with something, so it's nice to have that. And if you'd like to do that here, that would be good. Yes?
Sorry, can I just say something? Isn't there like a correlation between when someone is being open and honest with you to a level, then that honesty and that openness generally grows. But if someone's always on a superficial level with you...
Grows in you or grows in them?
It works both ways, because
yes.
they're opening up and there's honesty,
yeah.
And you naturally feel to become more honest.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I found. But
yeah.
Generally sometimes I think that it is a case of being scared to open up initially, because how am I going to be judged? How am I going to be perceived? Bhuta Bhargava, I remember I was in a class with Bhuta Bhargava in Birmingham a couple of years ago, and he said something really nice. He said, if you're ultimately not sure, test the water. Make up a scenario, like you said, like in what you do in the workshops. I don't know, I'm having this trouble with my partner, or that trouble with my finances, and see what level of reciprocation you're going to get. Because ultimately, you're not going to open up to someone who you're just like, oh, very well, bro, every time you meet them at a festival. But someone who sits down with you and you spend time with, and you might have association with regularly, get into a service with, and then you just start bonding.
Yeah.
You naturally start opening up to.
Yeah. There's 2 things that I think. And you mentioned, I think this is important, if I'm open, it's easy for you to be open, or easier, right? Because he didn't hide anything, so I feel pretty comfortable now. The second thing, I think what we could do, let's say you discuss and say, in our temple, we need to work on opening up and being more honest. Let's say you realize that's a problem. So you all get together and you talk about it. And you talk about it to a point where everybody is now willing to be more open and honest. And then, even though you don't know the devotee you're sharing with, you're confident now that everybody's understood the importance of it and is ready to do it. And then then it would be easier. So that I've seen that in workshops where you don't even know the person, but you open up because you feel like they're buying into a system that everyone is asked to follow, and therefore you can feel confident that this person has integrity. It's actually easier to open up to someone you don't know because they don't know your friends. So even if they know, there's nobody to tell that knows you. But I think that was my point about creating the culture. If everyone's pretentious, you naturally will just be pretentious because you think that's what you're supposed to do. Okay, like when you walk through the doors of Bhaktivedanta Manor, all of a sudden you go through an internal metamorphosis. Okay, look Krishna conscious while you're here. And when you walk out the door on Sunday night, you go, okay, relax. And just be yourself now. Get in the car, turn on the rock and roll, drive off, So, there may be some benefit to that in a sense, because Prabhupada said, imitation of a good thing is also good. But when it becomes pretension, it's not what we want. You agree? Does it make sense? Yeah. So my observation is that we need to understand humility in a way which is real for us and practical, not in a very theoretical model that we can't touch, that we don't even understand. I don't know if you know this, but Prabhupada said, if you find yourself envious of another devotee, you should serve that devotee. Did you know that? He said, if you're envious, serve. Now that I said that, if somebody serves you, you're going to think, oh, she must be envious, I don't like her. You're really nice to somebody tomorrow, and they're like, oh, they're envious of me, right? So that's a manifestation of humility in practice. It may not be a manifestation of humility fully, but in our stage, the manifestation of our humility is more practice, right? So I'm envious of you. And the solution or the cure for my envy is to serve you. Because envy wants to pull you down. It doesn't want to serve you. Envy doesn't want to support you. Envy hopes that you are miserable, isn't it? If you're envious of someone, you would be very happy if something bad happened to them, wouldn't you? And someone would tell you, go, oh, sorry to hear that. And inside you're like really happy. Yes? Yes or yes? Yeah. So what could be better cure for envy than service to that person, support, help them? So that was Prabhupada's remedy. Whatever the problem is, just do the opposite. So, the opposite of pretension is being real. So let's be real. That's the solution to being pretentious. Let's be compassionate. That's the solution to being judgmental. Right? Let's be respectful. That's the solution to not being confidential. Look at it. If someone says, will you keep this a secret, and you say yes and you don't, that's disrespect. Isn't it? Yes?
Get someone's trust. Why would you be able to anybody without building up a trust first?
You wouldn't. But the solution? We all become trustworthy. That would solve, then we wouldn't have this question. Like who to trust? Look around the room. Everybody. Isn't that the kind of society we want? And I think anything less than that is a failure to serve Prabhupada. So the fact that we have to ask this question is a symptom of the problem, isn't it? Because in a healthy ISKCON, we wouldn't even have this question, who to trust. Because I can trust everybody. So that's what I think we should work towards. a society in which everyone is trustworthy and we can trust everybody. That's how it should be, shouldn't it?
Is trust a little bit, if you want to trust somebody, is that situation a little bit of my problem because I'm expecting them to behave in a way that I think they should?
Yeah. You have a definition of trust that may be different from theirs. Well, if you're going to reveal something confidentially, you might want to explain what your definition of trust is. This is also interesting because sometimes you expect people to respond in a certain way, but they have their definition of trust and you have yours, and theirs was different from yours, and then you get upset. So you want to be clear.
I think if you kind of assume that you tell somebody something, it's sort of more in public domain, but it's out there. Almost assume that if you tell somebody something, then
That's it.
yeah.
Yeah. Generally, that's true. But we should be aware, if somebody's revealing something confidential, we should immediately realize that's not meant for anybody. And they had trust enough in me to tell me, and I don't want to betray their trust by telling anybody. Right? Like, if you're telling me something confidential, the first thing I should think is, thank you for trusting me. And I feel this is kind of a sacred meeting right now where I have to keep this. I can't share this unless I ask you, can I share this with somebody else? I think they can help you. Is that okay? I'd like to talk about this with my wife because she understands this better. Is it okay? I think that's how we should feel. You know, like, many people put their trust in me, and I feel very humbled by it. And I feel like if they're putting their trust in me, then that's my sacred duty to keep it confidential. Sometimes I'll talk in class about a situation someone's been through, but no names, because there's some instruction. This is how the devotee was going through this problem, this is how we solved it. It's beneficial for everyone. Or sometimes it's a he, and I'll say it's a she. I just feel like. So this person, I got in an argument with this person yesterday, and he said this. It was actually a she. I just want to protect people. But the instruction was important, so I want to talk about it. I think, this is my personal observation, if you become trustworthy, people will know you. Like, to answer your question, if someone's really trustworthy, sometimes you just get around them, you can feel it. Like, I trust you. I don't know why I trust you. I don't even know you, but I trust you. Thank you. Some people are like that. Isn't it? Shouldn't we all be like that? Wouldn't that be good? It's kind of amazing when I go to Mexico sometimes. Mexicans are interesting people. That I will give a course, right? And during halfway through the course, we take a break, and I say, if you want to talk to me, come and talk. And people will come and spill their whole life story and ask for help. And they've only heard me speak for 2 hours. Isn't that interesting? So when they do that, that's the nature of the culture. Like, in some of these cultures, 2 minutes is all you need to make best friends for life. In 2 minutes, you're at their house, you're staying over. They're paying for your flight back to wherever, like in 2 minutes. Some cultures are like that. So when people treat you that way, you think, I have to honor this. This is like amazing. I mean, people have put their whole lives, I don't even know them, and they go, boy, you trust me so much to tell me. And they're asking me, what should I do with my life? And I don't even know you. So I think it's a great honor, and we should, honor them. And the other thing we have to honor is don't give them advice that if it's a serious issue and you can't resolve it, don't tell them something that you're not expert at. That's a mistake also. So honoring someone would be to say, I'm not sure how to deal with this, but I'm going to ask somebody who knows. Yes.
Kind of related, but a little bit off topic.
Yes.
Because ISKCON is still quite young in terms of when Prabhupada came over, we've still got Prabhupada disciples that are around, so the distinction between who is senior in terms of amount of time they've been practicing Krishna consciousness is there. How do we develop a culture of understanding who is senior, not just in terms of amount of time they've been practicing, but in terms of their spiritual advancement and ability to help people within a community? Because it just feels like after Prabhupada's disciples' generation, maybe the generation afterwards, it just seems like then it's just all peers. Like how do we develop that culture to have what Prabhupada talks about in terms of having peers, seniors and junior relationships, but not just based on the amount of time that
how to honor advanced devotees who are actually advanced, not just by date of initiation or age. How to recognize that. Well, Prabhupada said self-effulgence is part of that. I think it would also be understanding that he doesn't have to be 85 years old to be advanced. He doesn't have to be a devotee for a certain number of years. He may have been a devotee for many lifetimes. If somebody inspires you, that's the most important thing. If somebody's enlightening you, clarifying things that you didn't understand, removing doubts, then why not respect that person for their advancement? I mean, that's a symptom of an advanced devotee. He can change something in your heart that ordinary devotee couldn't. It's something like some stumbling block or obstacle just gets moved out of the way by his association. Even sometimes without him speaking, just by being in his presence. So you can honor that. Prabhupada talks about that Prabhupada exhibited the signs of advanced devotee, but people didn't want to admit it due to envy. So envy is a problem. It'll block your vision. No, he can't be advanced, even though I see he's advanced. He can't be because I've been a devotee longer. If somebody can help you and you're so envious you won't take it, it's not good for you. And, in a sense, Krishna gives us opportunities to practice humility, and that's certainly one. Someone who's been a devotee 20 years, you've been a devotee 40 years, and you acknowledge he's more advanced. That's an opportunity for you to manifest humility. I was just thinking today, there's a really interesting phenomenon that goes on in ISKCON. And it probably goes on in corporations and organizations around the world. That as one advances, at least from our scriptures, we expect that person to become more humble, right? That as you progress, you should become more of a servant, less pretentious, more vulnerable, less assuming, and so forth, and just, more, we could say more real. But sometimes the opposite happens. And that's of great concern. Because we may think we've earned the right to become proud, when it's a paradox. And so, when you see a senior devotee washing the pots, taking out the trash, that's like, oh, this process works. That's encouraging. A Jayananda taking out the trash, temple president. People were moved by that. So this is amazing. He's running the whole temple and he takes out the trash. So inspiring. Gauranga Prabhu, Radhe Shyam, cooking and washing pots on parikrama. So inspiring. I think we have to be careful that we don't, in the name of advancement, become proud. And it's very easy for it to happen. Extremely easy. And if you're not careful, it will happen. Pretty much, you really have to watch out for it. It's at least, I can't say it will happen, it's likely. For many of us it will happen. At least at some point in our advancement, we'll get tricked to think I'm advanced and I deserve to be served. And you're just a young devotee, so you should serve me. And I can't do anything wrong. Another aspect of humility is the ability to take feedback. without being defensive. So you give me feedback and you say, the class you gave tonight, I don't think you should have said this because some devotees don't understand. Who are you to tell me? How long have you been a devotee? What do you know? I didn't say anything wrong. For me to say, thank you, I want to consider that. Thank you for pointing that out. That takes something, doesn't it? It takes a lot. But shouldn't that be what's happening as we're advancing? Shouldn't we take it humbly? That's a challenge. The people who have the hardest time being humble? The people who are the best, most qualified, the most moral, the most righteous, the most whatever. They have a hard time being humble because they're so good. Does that make sense? If you're so good, it's hard to take feedback that you're not so good. You were going to say something else? Does that make sense to everybody?
What you just said, you see it in the material world generally, even within in company you work for, especially if it's a small family-run business, for example, and people that have been there maybe a couple of years, maybe 40 years, you can see people that have been there longer, they know they want to become rigid.
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
I guess it's a symptom of just operating in the material world regardless of what you're doing.
Yeah, you naturally think you know more and you're better. You can't tell me anything. And if you get married and you're like that, you're going to have a lot of trouble. Because your spouse is going to tell you something that you need to hear. And the nice thing about it is sometimes everybody else is afraid to tell you because they don't think you'll appreciate it or maybe you'll become upset. But if it's important, your spouse will tell you. Not because she's upset or he's upset, because it's good for you. So it's good to have somebody around who can say, move over a little, you're going the wrong way. We should appreciate that. But that's hard. For some of us anyway.
I remember the point I was going to add to the question. As you were giving the example of many devotees who, they've done humble services and things like that, or services that kind of, they're not really externally prestigious. How do you find the balance between logistically managing, say if you are managing the upkeep of a temple, or you have some important service where it requires like very good governance and kind of strong personality, how do you balance
how you balance doing the job
humble,
correct?
Like we were
Okay.
saying, how do
Okay.
you recognize humility? Because in certain circumstances, like a Kshatriya, for example, in 5,000 years back, how would a Kshatriya demonstrate his humility? And how would someone in a leadership position demonstrate their humility without being soft? Because
how would a leader demonstrate humility in situations where he needs to be assertive, forceful, strong?
Exactly. So for themselves, as well as because it's as well as being humble, trying to be humble for their own good, is it important also to demonstrate humility to others, to set an example? And how is it done?
You could also rephrase that question and say, is it okay to drop my humility to get the job done? Or are you saying, how do I get the job done?
How do you get the balance right?
Yeah. Okay.
Cultivate
Well, let's deal with the question, the proposition I made, and then we'll answer yours. Sometimes people will take that path. If I'm humble, I can't get the job done, so I'll just drop it, get the job done, because the job is important. And being humble is less important than getting the result. That's completely wrong. The second point is, I think we misdefine humility. We think, well, I can't be strong if I'm humble. Right? So we know, obviously, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, extremely humble and extremely ferocious. So how could he be so ferocious as a preacher and so, just for lack of a better word, cutting people who have the wrong philosophy and be humble? If your mother is being attacked and you defend her, is that a lack of humility? No. not at all. And in a sense, sometimes we look at external actions and try to define that as, well, that's a humble action, or it's not a. It's the attitude. It's the conception. It's the conception you have of why you're doing it, who you're doing it for, under whose order you're doing it, that defines your humility. Arjuna, he fought. Was that humble? He's killing people. Is that humble? It actually can be extremely humble and kill 680 million people. That's what he did, basically. Was Arjuna humble when he decided not to fight? Looks like it, doesn't it? Krishna, I don't want to fight. Oh, Arjuna's very humble. Spiritually, if we define humility as following Krishna's order, at that point Arjuna became proud and had no power because of pride. And he followed Krishna's order. That's humility, and he's fully powerful. So we have to define humility as obedience to Krishna's order and recognizing his power through us. And just let me try to get the concept of what would be the greatest power of a leader. And I think one of the greatest powers of a leader is affection. Facilitation and affection. If I'm a leader and I have a lot of affection for you, you want to help me. So, and if I am not pretentious and I'm willing to admit my mistakes, who doesn't like a leader who is willing to admit their mistakes? And actually, companies have gone bankrupt because the leader wouldn't admit his mistake. So just from a practical perspective, if you're a leader and you're not humble, you could destroy a company because you won't listen to good advice. Right? So even in the corporate sector, from what I've read, they now understand clearly that if a leader's not humble, he can destroy a company. And people can lose inspiration because they can't get their ideas across because he only listens to his own ideas or the people he wants to listen to. So in that sense, humility is a kind of power. And of course we have Prabhupada. He was humble. But it doesn't come out as cowardice necessarily, or... No, it's not cowardice. Yes?
And then obviously the flip side of that, if we are observing the externals, how are we able to see humility in someone else if they are in that position, but it may not be so apparent, if that makes sense.
You mean they're too humble to get the job done?
I think if we are observing the person who they may be in a leadership position or a warrior or whoever, externally it may look like they're just like getting the job done, but
how
they
to
may
see
actually be humble.
How to see their humility? How to appreciate their humility? Well, I think one aspect of humility is that they're actually doing the job. Because it's a hard job. And Prabhupada told me, for a leader, one aspect of humility is to feel unqualified. So if a person is doing a job, but he doesn't really feel qualified, but he's willing to do it and depend on Krishna to get the Shakti, that's humility. That's how he shows his humility. Like, okay, we're going to stage this festival. He has no idea how he's going to do it, where the money's going to come, where this or that's going to come from, where the people will come, but he's ready to do it. That's humility, because he's put himself right on the edge of the mountain, he's ready to jump. With faith that Krishna will carry what he lacks. That's big humility. At least that's what Prabhupada told me. And then when it's successful, what's his humility? He gives credit to everybody, credit to Guru, credit to Krishna. It's not me, let's give credit to all the devotees. Let's thank Srila Prabhupada for helping us, like that. So that's one major way humility manifests in that kind of environment. What time is it? That clock doesn't work.
9:20.
It's 9:30. Okay, we have to stop. Okay. Sorry I went so long. I hope you had something? No. Well, if anyone has anything else to talk about, then I think I'm supposed to actually talk to somebody now, right? Am I? Yeah, all right. You can't talk to me. It's illegal. Unless you bribe me. Minimum bribe, 100 pounds. I'm supposed to talk to somebody now. But anyway, I just wanted to open these ideas up and so we can think about them and process them and realize that we have a culture, and the culture we have will define how new people come in and adapt to Krishna consciousness. And we don't want a culture where people feel concerned about being open, because that's a very important aspect of humility, that we can admit our faults and people can admit their faults to us, and we have that environment so we can grow that way. You agree? And I think it's really important. Well, thank you for tolerating me for an hour and a half. Was it an hour and a half? Yeah. Time flies. Time flies when you talk about humility. And I don't think I'm humble, but I'm trying at least to be real, because that's the definition of humility, to just be real. And I think that's important. And I can just be thoroughly honest. Some people are shocked when someone who's senior is real. They expect them to be unreal. And I think that's a symptom of the problem. You can't let your leaders be real. Leaders are... Why are they leaders? Because they struggle also, but they are determined to not give in. That makes them a leader, not that they don't struggle. Not that they're perfect, but they don't give up. And they're enthusiastic even where their problems are. So, that's important. When you become a leader, don't think now you're going to have to fake it. But actually, the more real you are, the better. Okay, we have a special announcement. Tonight, we have brought 13 CDs of my workshops. Well, 2 are music and 11 are workshops. And one is called the, what's the name of that? The Heart of a Vaishnava, which is our workshop on humility. And there's hours and hours and hours of courses, and we just scratch the surface. Amazing things on this topic. And we have japa, forgiveness, the mind, balance, sadhana, my stories about Prabhupada, marriage. What else? Vows. Cooperation. How to cooperate when you can't. And I put years and years of thought and time into developing these courses, so they're available for you. And we want you all to buy hundreds of them so I can get rich and use that money to preach. So this is one of the ways I support myself when I travel, and I have a project, and I would love to raise about $100,000 by the end of the year, because I need that to make this project successful. So this is part of the way you can help. Of course, anyone who wants to donate $100,000, you're welcome. But in lieu of that, you can. These CDs are kind of like gifts for you helping me, and Deepak here is happy to help you decide which ones to buy and make a deal so you can get many for a good discount. So those CDs will be out there somewhere on the table. And Deepak will not let you go unless you buy some. So we've got the door locked, and he has the code to let you out. And you just show him your credit card receipt, and he'll let you out. No, we take credit cards also. So thank you. It's nice to see you again. And Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
He's going